Alrighty. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Black Mark Studios podcast. Today we have Joruba from Black Mark to discuss Caribbean legends and uh, and yeah, and I have DH and we have DH and myself here with Pirates Ahoy. And how are you doing today, Joruba?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. So what? Just I guess just a little bit of personal background, like just what, just to start, what kind of got you into what kind of motivated you to make Caribbean Legends?
Okay, just a bit of info on myself. My name is Ivan or Ivan. For English speaking, this is the most common version for my name. Uh, I've been in game development for the past 12 years and published and released several dozens of games. Some of which I've done from the scratch to the release. And currently, I'm a game director of Caribbean Legends, which is interesting because I've built up a pretty decent career in game development, starting from a project manager and translated to a producer and game director and game designer. But my path started with Sea Dogs. I mean, my professional path started with Sea Dogs. So I think it was 10 or 11 years ago when To Each His Own was released. Uh, I've made a great friend, Michael or Mihail from Black Mark Studio. We just chatted a bit on Black Mark forum. Uh, those days we didn't have Discord back then, and so we got really good on on a personal level, and he offered me to translate the game, which I gladly accepted, and I started working with Akella, who was the publisher of the series back then. Worked as a freelancer, and eventually I gathered enough experience to start helping the studio on the game with marketing, project management, game design, narrative, and such. So a bit of everything, you could say. And even though I've changed a lot of companies and titles, the most relevant for you guys and the most familiar for you guys might be Buccaneers. I published that game on Steam. It was a recent release, I think 2 years ago or 1 year ago. And Tempest. So these are two games I have in my belt, in my portfolio. The other titles are, I think, Atomic Heart, King's Bounty 2, and so on and so on. But even though I've been working as a professional game development, I always kept working on To Each His Own, and eventually we got to Caribbean Legend. It was mostly a hobby for me. I didn't earn much money from those, but still, Sea Dogs have has a special place in my heart. Uh, I think I even wrote a larger big message on Steam and on Discord explaining why it is so important to me. And eventually I got this idea. See, To Each His Own was a bad product. It was an okay game, but a bad product. The reason for that was that it had only Russian translation on the start. It didn't have any marketing. It was full of bugs. It still has a lot of questionable design choices, game design choices. Sorry, and I felt that is unfair. It is a great game and a great series, and I just wanted it to be more, you know, more accepted. within the large audience on Steam. I wanted more people to learn about this series and this game because, above all, in my personal opinion, it had the potential to become a great open world RPG, and there are a lot of people who admire that genre. So this is how the Caribbean Legend began. At first, it was just an idea of a small expansion, like let's say a big patch with some game design adjustments, with more content, and that's it. But eventually, since the release, we had a lot of very talented people join us. And again, this is not a commercial development. By commercial, I mean we don't have salaries. We never had. But still, the power of Sea Dogs franchise was so, and still is so great, that we had a lot of talented people join us. And they started to push the scope of the project forward. So we got new user interface, we got more content, we got more quality of life adjustments, we got better graphics, and so on and so on and so on. And at some point, we realized that this is not a mere patch or legendary edition, as it was called back then. It started to feel more like a remake. Remake is a very subjective term, right? I mean, people have different expectations when it comes to that. When you call something a remake, people expect different things. Like some people expect a completely new, overhauled experience. Some people expect, just a expansion of the original. But in the end, it feels like a new game, and its goal is to push the series forward. It is a love letter, I would say. It is another chance to get out on Steam and present the series and the game to other people, to the wide audience. And now we have everything we need to. We have adjusted the game to make it more acceptable, more forgiving, without losing its hardcore nature. It's still a hard game, but it's just more comfortable to play. And we have the understanding how to market it. We have English, Spanish, and probably German and French localizations. And this is a chance where we can, stand up and just tell about ourselves. And this is important for several reasons. First, Akella is no more. For those who don't know, that was the original publisher of the series and the owners of the of Sea Dog's trademark. They still are, at least in Europe. But the Storm engine is now open sourced, and Black Marsh Studio is the owner of all assets and effectively all of the games on Steam. We don't sell them because we lost contact of the actual owner of Steam, but this is the first time community powered game can be sold on Steam. So there are a lot of good signs from different directions, and we'll be releasing in several months. And this is a chance, because if we are successful, personally, even though there is no alternative for Storm engine right now, and probably won't be, we want to do a proper relaunch of the series with Unreal Engine. At least that's my favorite pick, because I know how to use it, how to make games with it. We want to relaunch the series and give it, a second life in the modern market, which is much more demanding than it used to be. And I think that's about it. It was a very emotional decision to start this whole thing, and it was born out of love for the series. And the goal here is not to make a great game. It's still a goal, but it just won't suffice. We also want to make a great product, because this is what was lacking for the other games in the series. They're all great, but they they never had a chance to compete with other games in the genre, in the open world RPG genre. So yeah, I suspect that you have given, well, this is a Pirates Ahoy server, and there are a lot of mod makers here. I can see familiar usernames there and there. So I suspect that you have questions about the engine, about the trademark, and so on. If you have, I'm happy to answer them all. So just please write in the chat or just raise a hand. We will have you joined in this podcast.
Yeah,
And that's about it, I think.
yeah. I was just gonna say, we can certainly appreciate any passion projects because, I mean, well, certainly our biggest, I guess, quote unquote, product, though we're not selling it or anything, is the build mod for the Sea Dogs 2, aka the Pirates of the Caribbean game from 2003, and there are people who've been, over the past 20 years who've kind of put work in and out from that to some degree, and yeah, it's really cool to see what it creates because, in my opinion, that does create some of the best products. So yeah, definitely can appreciate you definitely can appreciate passion going into something like that. But yeah, anyone in the audience who has any questions, you can feel free to request to speak if you want to speak on the stage, or if you don't want to turn on your mic, just type in your question into the chat for the voice channels. You should be able to, if you hover your mouse over the stage channel, you should be able to see where you can open chat to speak and pose any questions. And it looks
It
like
came to
someone's
me
typing.
that maybe we should also show the trailer for the game, since I suspect that at least a couple of people that are here in the audience haven't seen anything in regards to the game. So I thought maybe I should just share my screen, and you can watch the trailer,
Um,
because
I can do it. That way, I can make sure the audio plays through Discord
okay,
properly.
have you got
And
the link to the trailer?
uh,
I
if you
I'd
can,
say we should just post a link to the Steam page of the game and let everybody watch who is interested, because I suppose some people are not interested in the trailer, but the Steam page is very descriptive and has all the info, so they can just study it when they.
okay.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just posted the
Yeah,
link to the game
I see
in the chat.
DH posted it. But Virgil did ask a question that I just wanted to make sure we got to before it got buried in chat. Is they're asking, is there going to be major story changes in Caribbean Legend? I'm assuming they mean from Teo.
yeah, absolutely. The biggest change, I suppose, is the proper epilogue to that story, a proper ending. This is a rather large quest, which involves, finishing all the, all the quests you have ever done in the game previously. They all have consequences, and you will just see what kind of world you've built during your playthrough. And in the end, you get a nice ending, which is very Fallout inspired, I would say. And there are different changes there and there, some narrative choices, some additional dialogues, lines, etc. So we didn't change the story, but we have added a lot of flavor to it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds great. I can't wait to get my hands on it myself. Honestly, it looks like a couple of people have posted messages Eagle Scout 42 says, I am curious with this new ending, will the game allow you to continue with your save post final cutscene, or will the run end in full?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The ending happens in Europe, but before you go there, you can you can free play without any limitations. So there will be a stopover screen like telling you like this is it. If you go past this mark, this is the end. But you can play you can go through the most part of the ending of the epilogue and still free play on the Caribbean. So yeah.
Alrighty, awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, there's quite a few questions coming in, so I'll read them off as they come in. And Dan Y asks, is it going to be open source where you can mod it out or not? Which I think you already said. I think you said it is. Or can you clarify on that?
Yeah, it will be open source, and this is a tricky one. We didn't hide let's call it our branch on the Storm Engine GitHub because we just wanted to keep our development progress hidden. We did that because there are some sensitive stuff concerning Steam integration. So if we just if we just pushed it publicly, that would be very easy to pirate the game. The irony, a game about pirates could be easily pirated. But we have no intentions to limiting the mod making scene. In fact, it's quite the contrary. To answer the question, we will open a program folder and we will push our engine changes to the Git. And this is one of our goals, to make modding the game more available to everybody. And that includes adding workshop support on Steam, so you could just publish mods there. Or if your mod is based on, say, Pirates of the Caribbean original game, which was released, I think, 20 years ago or something, we could do something like this. We could publish it as a free game on Steam, so it can be sold, because as far as I understand, there's a lot of copyright content used there, but we can publish it as a free game so you can get access to a wider audience. But this is just a plan. But workshop thing settled, and unlocking the scripts and the engine is also settled. We will do this shortly after the release. As for the engine, probably even before the release, but we have to make sure that we just don't push things related to Steam integration for obvious reasons.
Gotcha. I completely understand. And based, I do see your request to speak. Everything's going to be addressed in the order that it came in, so I'm going to address all the inquiries before you, and then we'll put you on stage. Deutsch asks, will the story at all be related to COAS and POTC, since we did have Nathaniel Hawke appear, and the COAS story didn't quite match up with the Island of Justice story from Tejo, like what happened with Chad?
Okay, so the reason why the story didn't quite match with the previous games is because the whole to each his own setting happens in the alternative, how to pronounce that? I was always bad at pronouncing that word. Alternative universe. So without any spoilers, what you see in the game is some sort of a time travel anomaly, and some details they just don't match. But we will have more to tell about Nathaniel Hawke and other characters in these little story changes we have. But we just didn't want to, to overrule previous games, because we believe that their stories are complete, and we just wanted to add more flavor to them. But yeah, there will be more details and funny little things for those who played previous games.
All right. Yeah. JTem asks, he would like to know if the dialogues of the new game have been ripped like the ones in Sea Dog's COAS.
Uh, I don't think I quite follow. What does it
Yeah,
mean?
I'm actually JTem. If you could clarify what you mean by that, it then that would be great. I'm not entirely sure what exactly he means by that either. So I do apologize, JTem. If you can clarify, we'll certainly re-ask it. Um, but now addressing in the order that came on, looks like Base has requested to speak, so we'll invite him on to ask whatever questions he has.
Okay.
So I sent him the invite. He should be coming on shortly.
Hello, Buster here.
Hey.
I hope my audio is coming through fine.
Yeah, you're coming through great.
Absolutely.
Okay, great then. Thanks for having me on. So I just have a few questions, more of historical nature, if so to speak. What I'm wondering is, to begin with, for those who don't know, like me, for instance, who is Blackmark Studio, and what is your connection to Akella and possibly Seaward? Because suddenly I just heard there's this new company called Blackmark Studio who is developing Seadox games. So I'm just wondering, who are you and what's your connection to Akella, who has, as I understand, gone out of business?
Okay, that's an unexpected question, surely. Blackmark Studios was founded, I think, 13 years ago. Originally, it was based in Ukraine, and back then, the original company made a deal with Akella to publish a new game in the Sea Dog series called To Each His Own. So, and it stayed that way, I mean, the deal with Akella, until, let's say, until the last year. And then the crisis happened in Eastern Europe, and apparently what had been left from Akella by then, and it wasn't called Akella back then, just ceased to exist because of sanctions, because of, people just abandoned the business, and suddenly Blackmark Studio was left with a game we own, with the assets we own, with the engine we kinda own, because it is open source. I mean, we can push ownership of that, but we won't do that. And no Akella, no publisher, so to speak. And I don't know what happened to them exactly. All I know that they lost all the trademarks they had, both Russian and American. I'm referring to Sea Dogs and to Corsairs. These are basically the same trademark. I know that they lost the ownership of the assets because we own them now. By assets, I mean like all the ships, all locations, everything, starting from POTC. And we try to make contact with them, at least with people who we know once belonged to Akella, but to no avail. And after checking with our legal counsel, we find out that they are out of the picture completely. So that's it. Blackmark Studio was one of the Sea Dogs developers because we published and made the latest installment of Sea Dogs game, To Each His Own, and we have done that with Akella but that was a long time ago, and now we're just on our own.
Okay, interesting answer. That leads into my next question about the Sea-Dogs brand. So,
Yeah.
so you're saying the Sea-Dogs brand, the brand itself, it now belongs to Blackmark Studio?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Is there some kind of reason then? I heard you can't legally call the game Sea-Dogs anymore. Is that
Yeah.
true?
That's because there is two legal systems in the world for trademarks. One is American, the other is European. And the American is covered, but the European still has an owner, which can be reached, but it is still there, and they've just locked it for themselves for the next 10 years, I think. So we could use the Sea-Dogs brand, I suppose, but there still be a risk that someday someone will just show up and tell us, hey, what the hell? Yeah, you might have a American trademark, but hey, you're still selling your game in Europe, and that's a fair share of market. So what are we going to do? So for safety reasons, I decided to abandon the Sea-Dogs brand, and to be completely honest, I don't see much value in it, because this brand was poorly supported by all the previous releases. As you remember, there we had Sea-Dogs 1, the original game. We have Pirates of the Caribbean. We had Age of Pirates. We had COS, and so on and so on and so on. So there's not much integrity there. There's not much value, and I just decided to not risk it, because again, European brand is still belonging to someone. I don't know who, and I just don't want to find out.
Okay, that gives a very clear answer to that question. I only have two questions left then, and the first one, I have admittedly I haven't actually played any newer games than Pirates of the Caribbean. I've just seen the newer games, the Age of Pirates games and so on. And I've gotten the impression that To Each His Own is an enhanced version of City of Abandoned Ships, and that Caribbean Legend is an enhanced version of To Each His Own. Is this accurate, or is that not quite accurate?
Well, the first part is, I would argue that it's not quite accurate, because the sheer amount of content, like the story, models, assets, code, it is very different from COS. It is debatable. Some people say that is just an expansion. Some people say that it's a new game. I stand with the latter. So I'd say it is a new game, even though it is heavily based on abandoned ships assets. And the Caribbean Legend is indeed an expansion to Each His Own, or I would say a remake of To Each His Own, and an advancement of the engine of the works, and it's just more prepared for the wide market. But yeah, it is an expansion of To Each His Own. The base game is still the same, it is still there.
Okay. That leads into my last question, and potentially a very important question for the community. If Blackmark Studio, you are the ones who now own the Sea-Dogs brand, the name. Do you know what the situation is with the Pirates of the Caribbean game? Because I've seen on Good Old Games, the website, the GOG, the original Sea-Dogs, as well as Caribbean Tales and City of Abandoned Ships are available there, but Pirates of the Caribbean is notably missing, and I'd assume it's because it has the Pirates of the Caribbean name. Do you know if that game could somehow become, shall we say, freed from Disney content, so it can be released, so people can have the game, even if it would mean that it has to be released under another name and all Disney assets removed? Do you know if something like that could be possible?
Yeah, so the the name won't be available in the foreseeable future because Pirates of the Caribbean is it's a movie brand, and as we know, the movies are just kept being on production. They're still releasing those movies. And as for the content, say the engine, the assets, and so on, they used to be owned by Bethesda. Now they're owned by us. So technically speaking, we could re-release this game, but under a different name. But I suppose we had to remove a Black Pearl from there and some, minor stuff related to the movies. This is something I would rather check with the lawyer first. But I'm fairly certain that the brand won't be available to anyone. The contents of the game, they are available. The situation with GOG is that they are super interested in having the whole series on their store, and they just keep bombarding me with emails like every 2 weeks, including the situation with Pirates of the Caribbean, which sadly I cannot fix for them. So yeah, this one is tricky because we always had 3 parties there: Akella, Bethesda, and Disney. And as my countrymen saying, this is a matter where you need like 3 bottles of vodka to just starting to figuring out what the hell is going on. And I don't drink much anymore, so sorry. But yeah, I understand why this one is very important for you guys. Unfortunately, this is the only title which I'm not sure about.
Are there any plans, or, well, maybe not in the foreseeable future, but sometime that perhaps the game would be separated and released under another name?
Probably, but that will happen only if someone from the community, like people like us, will step forward and tell us, hey, we have a game and it has a lot of original content. We didn't take any models or textures or any assets from other games, say from Naval Action or something like that. So all we have is our own assets and the assets originating from the original release. Wow, and that sounded well. And what do we do with that? And in that case, we could say, hey, let's try to do something about it. Let's try to publish this under a different name as a part of a different series. And this is the only way I can think about evolving Pirates of the Caribbean to a product. But we would have to abandon the name anyway.
Yes, of course, the name would have to go because that's Disney content anyway. But from my perspective,
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude, but we do have quite a few questions building up. So
I was trying to wrap it up here. Yeah. My last question would be, it would be nice from a community perspective if Blackmark Studio would somehow, like you're saying, it would be a huge undertaking to talk with lawyers and so on to separate it and get all the Disney content out of it, like the Black Pearl and so on, and then release the game as is. But I had a thought for myself, like, what if we in the community, like on Pirates Ahoy, what if a modder just stripped every Disney content away from it because the Sea Dogs 2 logo is still included in the game files? What if, let's say, we took the base game as it is, no mods, and we just remove all the Disney content, just not disable it, just remove every Disney content, the Black Pearl and everything, and basically turn the game back into the state it was when it was Sea Dogs 2. could that then be somehow officially released if the community does the work, so Black Mark doesn't have to do the work, or would that still be a problem from, say, a legal perspective?
I would say that this is definitely possible, but legal consultations will still be required because there are a lot of tiny details that could ruin the whole thing. I mean, you could ditch Disney and they wouldn't mind, but there's still Bethesda, and I just don't know what stand they have on this. Like, they shouldn't own anything because we are using their content in Caribbean Legend, and we use their content into his own, such as music and so on. So, and as far as I remember, Akel once told us that we can take anything we want from POTC, which allegedly means that it's free fest. So yeah, what are you saying? If the community will stand up and do this, then we can discuss options. Unfortunately, we can't do this ourselves. We just don't have the time for that. No resources.
Yeah, that I understand. So possibly that could be discussed at a later time then. But it's good to know that there is at least some kind of hope for it, that there is some possibility.
There is, yeah.
All right, that was all of my questions. So I thank you very much for your answers, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Okay. I did move base back in, or I keep messing up the pronunciation. I'm so sorry. But I moved him back to the audience, and I do want to get through quite a few of the questions, and we do have a request to speak. I'll get to that once we do get through the rest of these questions first. And this one, it sounds like it might be a little bit hard to answer without giving away spoilers. Granted, I'm less familiar. I'm more familiar with Sea Dogs 2 than anything, so I might be speaking a bit out of ignorance there. But someone, Beowulf, was saying, I want to have Mary Casper, Ellen MacArthur, and Daniel Hoyk, I may have mispronounced that, as my officers. To do that, I fail Pirate Saga, Destroy Tortuga, and Kill Avancier. Can I do that at your new game? Will you make a Steam achievement for people who are doing it?
All right. So basically it is the question: can I have all 3 female Vanguard officers serving at the same time on the same ship, so I could take them with me everywhere? No, you can't take Danielle Hawk because she is Nathaniel Hawk's wife. I imagine he wouldn't be much happy about that. And the rest is spoilers. Sorry, guys.
I kind of figured. Yeah. So sorry, Beowulf. We don't want to give away too many spoilers here. And Virgil was asking, what about graphical changes? Where there'll be major graphics and lighting change, so that so much to the point where you need a stronger PC to run Caribbean Legend than you ran, for example, Tejo on?
Yeah, graphic changes are one of the cornerstones of the Caribbean Legend. We definitely uplifted the graphics. We have new lightning system. We have better shadows. We have better skyboxes and water and bigger vegetation distances. Yeah, so you can see trees on islands from far big way. We have more light sources, and they're all dynamic. So in essence, yeah, I suppose you would need a better PC than you had for a previous game. And actually, it is displayed on Steam. It's just double the video memory, a better CPU. These are not drastic changes, but yeah, you will probably need an upgrade if you're still having an old PC, because it just won't work as great. The Storm engine itself was quite updated during the past few years. I mean, as far as I understand, it can support over 1 million polygons on one scene simultaneously. And currently we are testing new assets for weapons, and they have like okay polygons, which is 4 times more than your regular pistol in the game. And the game, handles that just fine. And as far as I remember, people had several 100,000 polygon ships, and the engine did just fine. As far as I understand, there is some work going on with the engine, which is not us. This is another team. They are doing this great mod calling Ships Back, and I think they might uplift the graphics even further, including the support of normal maps and so on. But we won't have time to integrate that to the release. But if that happens, I expect that the system requirements will just grow even further. But if you ran to each his own, you won't have much trouble running Caribbean Legend. And I apologize for my lengthy answers. It's just my super irritating manner of speaking. Sorry.
Oh no, you're perfectly fine. And besides, I think the people here generally want detail. I'm. And this is all very interesting to hear for myself because just me personally, I'm usually so focused in the world of the POTC build mod and Sea Dogs 2. So this is all great for me personally here too. So. So this next question is a little sensitive. You can choose not to answer certainly, if you want. Basically, the question is, how is the current war military operation going on in Ukraine affected the development process of the game in any publicly noticeable way? Has anyone in the team been in danger? Has any content been cut in regard because of certain sensitivities? And also they're curious, since the release of the Legendary Edition was publicly announced to be 2022, and if the conflict has caused any delays, and if they recall, Mr. Kolvanko is CEO, so they're curious if they missed something, or if basically what's happened to development. The TLDR is basically, has it caused any change to the content or the team itself? And they're like I said, it's a sensitive question, so feel free to answer that however you like.
Well, this whole thing did affect the team, of course. Personally, I had to fleeing. If I want to be honest, I just fled Russia. I think a week later, this whole thing started, because I was always working for American and European companies and getting my salary from them. So at some point I realized that if I just stayed, I would go poor, because there will be no way for me to get salary. And since then I've been traveling around the world, and that definitely had an effect on the production, because it's very hard to support. That time it was a hobby. If you are just, traveling around the world with a Russian passport. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but it's nothing major for me, because I'm a traveler by nature. For the rest of the team, not everything went so smoothly as for me. Mr. Kovalenko, Michael, the friend I was referring to earlier in this podcast, I think he might be one of the best of my friends, and I owe him a lot, because he was the guy who basically opened the gates for me to to the professional game development. Well, he's serving, and that's about it. I don't have any right to share any personal information like that, especially since he is actively serving. We have another Ukrainian, I think, in our team, and well, let's just say that this whole situation doesn't really help to stay in productive status, but nevertheless, I think he works super hard. We didn't, and that's it. We didn't have any conflicts, like internal conflicts within the team, and politics is banned on the server and within the team for good reason, I suppose. And that's about it. I get a lot of questions about, like, if I buy the game, will I be supporting Russia in any way? No, you won't. I would prefer if you did, because that would mean that I just lived in my home country, but we have no legal ties whatsoever. The Black Mark Studio is a Ukrainian legal entity, and our publisher, which is also, well, my publisher, because I co-founded this company, is located in Kazakhstan, so don't you worry. So yeah, it hit us hard, but in the end, it gave us more time, I think, because we just took some time to recharge, and during that time, a lot of talented people joined the team and made the game better. So there is always a silver lining, even in the darkest of things, I think.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I actually had to. That'll be in the recording, but I actually had to leave for a few seconds there. But yeah, thank you so much for answering that. And certainly wish you the best. But moving forward with the questions, JTEM did clarify on his question. He said a problem he was encountering in translating to each his own was that the dialogues were scattered among the game code, which made the task difficult. In COAS, on the other hand, the dialogues were located in different folders according to their language. So I think what he's asking is just like how will it be for if he wants to like translate into other languages.
Yeah, we have a module system now, so it's just 2 folders with different language files, and you can switch freely between them in the game settings anytime. So the whole file system is a bit different, and I imagine that since it's JTAM asking, by the way, hola, we will have to adjust Spanish translation in terms that we will have to, to adapt the original to each his own Spanish translation, which JTAM did, to Caribbean Legend file system, which will be a layer of work, but once we are done, I suppose it will be easier to go on and translate into other languages.
Okay, so I'm going to take over for a little bit, since Tommy has to work on something in the meantime. And basically, Sai asks if you could you use the trademark in the sense that it's not legal, but to your knowledge, nobody would actually stop you. And he remarks that this would be a very piratey approach. So I think this is in regards to the Pirates of the Caribbean trademark. If you think that you could actually just use CDocs 2 or anything else, just in the regards that you could do something with it, even though it's not technically, from a legal perspective, you're right to do something with it.
Well, we definitely can't use Pirates of the Caribbean trademark. I think that's obvious. We can use Sea Dog's trademark, and that would be legal for us because we are, we have every rights to that trademark. But there's always this little but. There is a minor chance that someone will object, and it's just not worth it. So I don't want to go super piratey here, especially since I don't see much value in the trademark in the first place. So yeah, we want to operate as legal as possible because that's no joke.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. And in regards to the workshop support on Steam, I think this is also really relevant for our community here. Does it change the way of how mods are being made for the game? So, because for now it was just the changes in the base files of the game. And with the workshop, obviously, it might be quite different also in regards to the Russian version and the English version. Is it going to be better integrated also within those two communities?
Yeah, so the workshop is a really sophisticated system which allows branching and checking the hash sums. So basically, if you activate a mode, any mode in Workshop, Steam downloads it as a patch. So it just checks the base game hash sum and compares it to the mod hash sum, and then it just downloads what is necessary and rewrites the necessary files. The problem will arise if, say, you try to install different mods. Naturally, they will be in conflict with each other. And Workshop supports that too, but I suppose that in our case, we will have to, to have some limitations, like you can have only one global mode at the same time activated. Or we would need to come up with some sort of the priority loading system like you have in Bethesda games. Say, first Steam, uploads this mode and only that modes. So again, this is a tricky one. Workshop is definitely not a cure to all our problems, but it will make our job easier. So yeah, we will see about that. But having Workshop support is already a big change, and hopefully it will just allow a better modding in the future.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that because honestly, I think it's a great step forward. Having all the mods in one place and also on Steam really makes life quite a little bit easier, I think. I'm just really curious, do you think the Russian mods are going to be compatible with the English mods?
Well, you could install them, yes, and you can. The only thing I think, the only problem here would be a translation, and that can be easily covered with the use of AI nowadays. But I just don't see the reason why you can't use Russian-based mods in other games. Well, you will have to translate them first, of course, like happens with any mod out there.
Okay,
Alrighty.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, and I was listening in most of that time. I apologize. I had to duck out for a second there, but yeah, and I feel like we went over all the POTC content with in Disney stuff into Caribbean Legend. I don't know how much we want to keep going on that point. But let's see. So basically, as we can asked, curious if the combat in Caribbean Legends is going to be reworked. This is really tedious, especially on higher difficulties when you have to strike an enemy like a couple hundred times to grind through his HP and healing potions with low damage. Some casual tavern fights can go on for like 30 minutes of real time because you run out of energy and there's not a lot of things to do.
Well, yeah, we will have a auto leveling system to fight that, and the problem we had before with the long fights is because there was a bug in the game, which just gave everyone a great armor, especially captains. For when you duel a captain in the cabin, the game just put the heaviest armor on them, and you had to to pick them for minutes, to drop down their HP. So the game will be more, it won't be easier, but will be more comfortable. And by comfortable, I mean it will be more fast and there will be less reloads, and less reloading you save, and shorter fights. So yeah, that one is addressed too.
Alrighty, yeah, and P. Murnason, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. They asked, as big as a fan as big of a fan as I am of that series, I say this with love. I have always found them a little lacking in terms of polish and bug fixing. Is this an opinion you share? And if so, would you mind expanding on what you're focusing on polishing more on Caribbean Legends?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that was actually one of the reasons we decided to make Caribbean Legends. Regarding the bugs, I think we fixed most of them in the base game, and the rest will be taken care of during the testing period. Same goes for the polishing. Like this is a big chunk of work, and the reason why it has always been a problem for the previous games, by problems I mean the bugs and the polishing issues, is because as far as I understand, every Sea Dogs game always had this crunch time development, and I don't think I can remember at least one case when the teams had a chance to test the game properly. And that whole thing started with the original Sea Dogs game. Like super tightened budget, very little time to develop. And in the end, something had to be sacrificed, and for obvious reason, testing was the first thing to do. So I think Caribbean Legend will be a very stable game, and I don't expect it to have blockers in terms of bugs. As for polishing, it will be more polished than the previous title, and we will of course keep working on polishing the game even after the release. You can't release a perfect game, like 100% bug free and 100% polished, but we're getting there.
Alrighty, next question. Sai was asking, basically, will the game have multiplayer? Yes or no?
Fun fact: we actually had multiplayer in production for some time. We even had a prototype because, as I think you remember, that one of the Age of Pirates games, I don't know what it was called in Europe and the US, but it had multiplayer, and we still have code in the engine for that. dated 2005, something like that. So we tried to do that, and it worked, but it would require an enormous amount of resources and time to get it right. Definitely enough to make it a mod, but far from enough to make it into the final product. So sorry, no multiplayer for Caribbean Legend, but I hope that someday some mod team will get it done, because the potential there is like enormous.
Alrighty. Yeah, no, I'm multiplayer is always it's its own thing. I think a lot of people don't realize how how big of a thing it can be. Certainly, um, but yeah. The next question from Ignoto. I again I apologize. Some of these names I don't know if I'm mispronouncing. Um, will there be economy difficulty options like harder merchants, nerfed bankers, loot being less valuable or more rare, crew getting greedy if Charles has too much money, etc.?
Right. Just 1 second, please. Just some minor technical difficulty here. All right. So about the economy thing, we won't have any additional sliders or options for that, but it will be more expensive to run a ship, because running a ship is not for everyone. It is like I think the closest analog would be having a private jet, or even that would probably be enough to make a proper comparison to the modern days. So having a ship will cost you more money, especially if we are talking about warships. Like having a warship in Caribbean Legend would burn out a budget of whole French colonies in 6 months. So you have to be immensely rich to be able to afford that kind of ship. And we have more ways to spend money and more ways to invest the money. So at some point of the game, of course, if you are, exploring a lot and spending all the time in free play, you will be super rich. But we pushed that moment a bit further. So to make sure that people won't, lose an interest in making up a fortune. Besides, the epilogue itself will require a tremendous amount of money. Like you would literally need to, to gather as much as you can to get the best ending. Because in the end, this is about money. Piracy is about freedom and earning money, and you have to be a good earner to get the best ending. So yeah, no difficulty options, but the whole balance was shifted.
Alrighty. Yeah, no, and that makes sense. That sounds more realistic. Virgil asked, they'd like to ask if there's going to be more locations and islands in the Caribbean maps, or maybe even hidden locations that you can find via quests.
Yeah, we will have more locations. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's something I always like more locations in pirate games for sure. And then Dinah1 was asking, how large is the team of Blackmark Studios, and with the limited resources, how can we, as members of the community, contribute to the project, i.e., volunteer or QA, etc.?
Okay, so we have, I think, around 8 people currently in the team, and 5 of them are active members. By active, I mean like everyday work. I'm the only guy who works full time on the game, but this is just a very rare luxury and privilege I have, and I don't expect other people to follow it. We have we have a lot of talent for code work, for interface work, for minor stuff like guns, swords, maybe characters. Our weak spot is 3D modeling, like for big stuff, for ships, for locations. And if it was any other engine, I would just go to say Unreal asset market and just buy off everything we need. But unfortunately with Storm, it's not that simple. So yeah, the best way to contribute, actively contribute, is 3D modeling. This is something we are lacking. But realistically speaking, it's only 4 months until the release, and I don't think we will be able to do much. So as for now, I would just focus on developing what we have, and there's still a lot of work. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so Deutsch was asking, will all the textures be improved or upscaled? When watching the stream a few weeks ago, it seemed like a lot of the textures remained the same.
Yeah. So that's true. We didn't touch textures that much. We are currently experimenting with the upscaling them using the AI. Unfortunately, I don't see much of a progress in that department, so if this is actually another way to help us out. If you know someone, or if you are an expert of that kind of thing in texture uplifting, upscaling, that would be a great help. Because this is something that can be done rather quickly, I think, but we just don't have the expertise.
Okay, definitely noted. Beowulf, I am gonna go over your question because I feel like we're getting too much into spoiler territory, because that's just kind of hyper specific into a part of the story, and I think so. I do apologize.
That spoiler, that's a big one. So sorry.
Yeah,
I won't be spoiling it.
yeah.
Anything
So,
here.
and also I know it's getting late your time too, so I'm really wanting to get through the questions and hopefully get wrapped up before too long. Um, Virgil was asking, are there going to be more types of ships in Caribbean Legend, like junk ships, for example, or will the amount of diversity in ships remain the same as Tejo? Also, will there be animations in ships while you are boarding the ships?
Yeah, we will have more ships. Again, not much more because again we have a weak spot when it comes to 3D modeling. We uplifted the first rank ships, like I think all of them, and we added a couple of new models. And as for the animations for boarding, that would require big changes in the engine. So sorry, now the boarding will remain the same, and that's a big shame because originally I think this is the only big thing which we planned for the Legendary Edition and it didn't make to the Caribbean Legend. We wanted to have more locations for boarding scenes. And the game design idea was that each boarding scene would be a unique arena with different challenges, with different strategy and so on. And we plan to have a separate scene for each combination. Say you board a first rank ship with a 6th rank ship and you have this location. And if you board 3 to 3, you have this location. Unfortunately, it didn't make it. Again, no 3D model and talent. I mean, for things that big.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for answering that. And yeah, just it looks like just two more questions here. Pete Marnison was asking, expanding on Dino One's question, would you consider putting part of the game files, quests, and such in a public repository so fans can contribute directly as an alternative to modding?
Yeah, that's the plan. Uh, some of I think that the engine will be the first. I mean, the sources we have, we will publish them before the release, and the program folder will be published a bit after the release again, because of the Steam.
Awesome. Yeah, and he said awesome in response, so yeah. Um, Last question before we begin wrapping up. It looks like in Tejo and the last Sea Dog games, islands like St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, Montserrat, Aruba, etc., aren't present on the map. When you say new locations, will new islands like these possibly be added?
No new islands, but we will have more locations within those existing islands. The current Caribbean map is already it's super tight right now, and there's just no room for more islands there. We have some reservations for the big expansion we're planning to deliver after the release for another main hero, another character called Diego de Montoya, the Spanish hero. And for him, we will have more islands, and one of which will be a base of operations for the Catalonian Guard. So yeah, more islands is definitely a thing, but after the release.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I seems like we've had a really good turnout here. I mean, shoot, right now we have 27 people in the audience, along with plus us three. So I'm really happy with the turnout. I'm really happy with everyone asking so many questions, and there are people in chat thanking you for staying up late for us, which I do want to thank you. I know it's so late your time. So we greatly do appreciate you taking the time, especially so late, to speak with us, and it's just greatly appreciated. I know, especially after speaking with you today, I'm going to be certainly picking this up, and I'm going to be certainly playing it and getting into it as well, because I do want to get into something other than just Sea Dogs 2 and the build mod. That's always kind of been my thing, but I kind of want to be in on some of the other conversations as well. So yeah, it's yeah, everyone's saying best of luck. Thank you so much. Are there any closing comments or anything we didn't touch on here that you want to touch on real quick, Joruba?
I think we had a very fruitful discussion here, and thank you very much for having me. No problem at all. I'm hoping we can do another podcast in some near future, especially if we have some sort of a big update. And in any event, I'm here on Pirates Ahoy server. So if you have any more questions which we didn't have time to address tonight, just feel free to tag me, and I'll be there for you. Again, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. Hoping to do that again.
Certainly, like I said from the beginning, certainly the build mod I know has always been an extreme passion project. So we love anyone who does any other sorts of passion projects as well. DH, I know you were talking about giving away keys and whatnot, and I don't know how you wanted to handle all that. So if you want to kind of wrap up with that or with anything else you want to say.
Yeah, so also from my side, a very high thank you, because I know this is quite difficult to get together so many people and to answer questions, especially at your hour now in Kazakhstan. And so a very warm welcome and thank you also from me. And now in regards to the giveaway, I thought that since most of you guys did participate in the event and had a blast, I think, in regards to asking questions, I thought that everybody who is interested in getting a key for the game, just hit me up with a DM and I will give you a key, because I've got 20 keys now and I'm just going to get a couple more, and then I think everybody who participated today can just get the key for me, and I think it's going to be also something in it for you.
Alrighty. So if you are interested in a key, DM DH. Just you can just direct message him on Discord. Um, and yeah, so we are. Mercenally, it is getting late for Joruba. So if you have any other questions, feel free to tag him on the server or message him. I'm assuming that's okay.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, so it is getting kind of late for him though, and we have been going on for just over an hour, 15 minutes now. Like I said, thank you so much for all your time, and and do either you want to say anything else, or I think that basically concludes it at this point.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out. Joruba, it was a great pleasure having you, and I'm most certainly looking extremely forward to playing Caribbean Legends. I'm gonna pick it up. I actually never played Tejo, so this should be interesting. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And this whole conversation has me interested, and I've always been into this. I've just always been into these sort of video games. So I'm really excited. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks everyone for coming out. And yeah, Druba, hopefully we'll be back here speaking in the not too far future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.